I know there's a way to filter. Here we go. All right, so we are on CW D7-8 review, and we did number 1, which had, we were first asked to mark number 3, which is RU is congruent to RU. We added this single tick mark right here. We also noted that we can view the rubric. The correct placement of the mark is on the segment RU, and the correct type of mark is a tick mark because it is a segment. Moving on to number 2, what is the reason for number 4? Looking at our triangle, and it can help, I don't want you guys to do this. Normally I would do this up on the board, but since we have our groups kind of, that's not working. Watching from home, I'm just going to do this the best that I can. Fill shape. See what I can do. Try to cover. So when we're trying to analyze our triangle, we want to look at just one of the 2 triangles. Looking at this triangle, how many angle pairs do we know? Okay, 2 angle pairs. How many side pairs do we know? 1. All right. And is that side pair included between the 2 angles or excluded outside the 2 angles? It is excluded, which makes this triangle proven by angle, angle, side. Now, you don't want to write all that in there because then it will make it hard for me to grade your tick marks, but that's me showing you that thought process. So our reason for number 2 should be angle, angle, side. And then if you're in class, this is an ungraded doodle space, but if you're doing this outside of class, you are free to ignore the ungraded doodle spaces. In class, we are free now to move on to number 4, section B. And we are going to look at our diagram here. We're asked to mark numbers 1, 2, and 3 from the proof. Again, we can click this to pop it out if we want to check on it. Ideally, it helps out if we mark these in order. Make sure this is a reasonable thickness. So my first statement, congruency statement, is that SV, here's segment SV, a little thicker. SV is congruent to segment ST. My second congruency statement is that segment UV, here's UV, is congruent to segment TU. What is wrong with what I've done so far? Can someone correct me? Kaylin. All of my tick marks are the same. That's a problem. How could I fix this? Ashlyn.
Add another tick mark to the second.
Yes. So ideally, doing this in order, here was my first, here's my second. So I'm going to do 2 tick marks for my second pair of angles. So this helps me be consistent and nice and orderly, right? And so then my third set of congruency is SU is congruent to SU by a reflexive property. So that would be 3 sets of tick marks. Notice my rubric now gives me 2 points for having all 3 pairs of marks placed correctly, 1 point for having 2 of them placed correctly, and no points if I am missing 2 or more pairs of tick marks. Right? With that diagram marked, looking at reason number 4, what would be my reason? Everyone go ahead and give that a try. And it looks like everyone who has answered number 4 has answered it correctly. Great work. And everyone who has answered number 5 has answered it correctly, which is side, side, side. I have 3 pairs of sides. So I've set this up so that hopefully, and remember you can zoom in and out with Control plus or Command plus to zoom in, Control minus or Command minus to zoom out if you're not seeing the little magnifying glass in your browser. So that you can see your diagram that you've marked and see the reasons and the proof. So this was kind of the best compromise I could find to be able to mark your diagram and mark your reasons. All right, anyone have any questions before we move on to section C? Okay, section C, number 7. While you start that, I'm going to take a look at our number 6 doodles, or giant spaces of orange. Ooh, I like the circles. Circles are cool. I like the pig.
Whose flower is that?
But I really like the circles, actually. That's really cool. What is that, Keaton?
It's a bow.
Bow and arrow, okay. I was getting something somewhat like cave painting-ish. Bow and arrow. Well, yeah, it's like a bow and arrow, often in cave paintings. All right, number 7. We are marking numbers 2 and 3 from our proof. So I have, just to review, by the way, number 1 is angle G is congruent to angle I. That has already been marked. But just to help me view it better, I'm going to mark it again, just so it's kind of big and obvious for me. That helps me see it. Just like a thicker angle mark. There we go. All right. And then number 2. Now, this one's a little tricky. I'm not a fan of this particular question, so I'm going to try to make sure it's not like this on the quiz. But it gives me that EI. And EI is this long segment here. Turn on the line, actually. It says EI, this whole segment here, is congruent to EG. This whole segment here. This is a little unusual. All right. How would I mark angle E is congruent to angle E by reflexive property of congruence? Anyone have any ideas? Anaya? Ashley?
You put 2 angle arcs on angle E.
Okay, so I already have a single angle mark on angles G and I. So this second set of angles needs to be a double angle arc. And angle E is congruent to itself, so I'm just marking that double angle mark in one place because angle E is congruent to itself. Now, it's going to be helpful when trying to work with overlapping triangles. It is often helpful to trace the triangles in 2 different colors. So I'm going to suggest we go ahead and do that right now. I like to do this in a nice, thick, but partially opaque highlighter. Yellow and blue really works well for me generally. So I have one triangle here. Oops, that's my squiggly, and the line helps. Okay, so I have one line here, or one triangle. Oops, here we go, triangle. That's my yellow triangle. And then I have a second triangle. Looking at these triangles now, let's focus. I don't want you guys to do this necessarily, but I'm going to do this so we can focus on just one of the triangles. I'm going to blot out the other triangle. All right, so again, you guys aren't going to do this, but I'm going to blot out one triangle. Okay, looking at our remaining triangle, what pieces of information do I know about my blue triangle? How many pairs of angles do I know? 2 pairs of angles. How many pairs of sides do I know? 1 side. Is the side an included side or an excluded side? It's included because here's an angle, and my side is here between them. So when I go to figure out number 4, my reason my triangles are congruent, what is my reason? Angle, side, angle. There we go. When you finish that, you may move on to number 10 while I grade your numbers 7 and 8. I will let you know when we can go on break. We have an amount that needs to be completed first. All right, number 10. All right, this is our first question with more than one reason that we're finding. It's also not specifying which parts of the proof we need to mark. So we need to go step by step through all parts of the proof and make sure we're marking every congruence, each angle pair congruence it gives us, and each segment pair congruence that it gives us. So this is what the quiz will be more like, where we're checking each part of the proof. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and try this, and I'm going to grade your number 10, and I will give you feedback if you are missing something to let you know. And if I see that you have completed numbers 10 through 12 correctly, then I will add your name to OneNote, and you will be dismissed to break at that point. Okay. So for anyone who might have been struggling with number 10, I like to go ahead and just mark all of my congruent sides and angles. So I'm going to start with angle Z is congruent to angle X. I'm going to grab my scribble. Angle Z is congruent to angle X. Then I have angle XWY. Notice with my 3-letter angle names, it can be a little tricky, but W is the vertex with X and Y for sides. So W vertex with X and Y for sides, that's this angle, is congruent to YWZ. So same vertex, but Y and Z for sides. W vertex, but Y and Z for sides. So that marks number 3 congruent. And then number 4 is side segment WY is congruent to segment WY. So segment WY is congruent to itself. Do a single tick mark. Then looking at this triangle, and maybe just looking at one of the triangles, kind of look at this triangle and evaluate how many side pairs do I know? 1. How many angle pairs do I know? 2 angle pairs. Is my side included between the angles, or is it excluded? I see that my side is excluded. So this is angle, angle, side, which will help me answer number 5. Now, why is WY congruent to WY? And I'm just going to write this in here. This was helpful for first period. Come on. Okay. I'll get a thin pen right here. When we have anything where it is congruent to itself, WY is congruent to WY. You could picture this. We're essentially saying that this is looking in a mirror at itself, at its reflection, which is why this is a reflexive property. In this case, it's reflexive segments. So when we go to number 4 reason, we're going to choose reflexive segments. If we had angle A is congruent to angle A, then angle A would be looking in the mirror at itself, reflecting itself, and that would be reflexive angles because it would be angles. So our number 4 reason is reflexive segments. And our number 5 reason, looking at our triangle, we had 2 angles and a side with our side excluded. So that's angle, angle, side. Okay, I've had the class complete 14 through 18 on their own, and then we will pick up with the second half of this assignment together in our next class. Have a great day.